Hello, and welcome to Own Your Retirement. My name is Albert Lalonde from Kaizen Financial. If you'd like more information about what you hear during our show today, give us a call at 586-752-7008 or visit us online at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. It's Kaizen, Kaizen. And while on my website, click on the podcast page to check out our past shows and also subscribe to our program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music. All right. Many see retirement as a reward for decades of hard work, financial planning, and budgetary discipline. Naturally, your anticipation for this key milestone grows as it draws closer. But what if everything doesn't go according to the plan you and your financial service professional so carefully built together? What if, for example, you were to unexpectedly lose your job 5 years before you were to retire? And what if that anticipated job loss happened 2 years before your retirement, or even worse, 1 year before? So, sure, some degree of panic is likely, but this is also the moment that financial strategies are built for. So, during today's show, we're going to discuss some of the financial strategy steps you can take should you find yourself out of a job shortly before you plan to retire. But before we begin that conversation, let me introduce my co host, Tony Shore, who doesn't know the meaning of the word panic at all. Right, Tony? Oh, I got no volume.
Yeah, I don't know about that. They say I'm cool as a cucumber,
Oh,
Albert.
okay.
Yeah, yeah. But as far as today's topic is concerned, I mean, who wouldn't panic if they lost their job not
Right.
long before they wanted to retire? That's a nightmare scenario. Nobody wants that,
Right.
and hopefully, you have some information that can help calm our listeners' nerves today, right?
I'll do my best, Tony, here. And we're going to start with the USA Today article titled Nine Steps to Take If You're Laid Off Within 5 Years Retirement. Now, let's got some information that we can chew on a little bit. And let's talk about something that's hitting a lot of folks hard right now, and that's layoffs. February brought the highest number of job cuts we've seen since, well, July of 2020. And that's according to data the article shares from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. Now, more than 172,000 job cuts in just 1 month. And leading the way, well, nearly 63,000 federal positions, boom, slashed. Now, if you're in the tech space, you already know it's been a roller coaster. The fast pace that once opened doors is now making it harder for folks to land on their feet. Meanwhile, those with more traditional transferable roles, like let's say management, might have a slightly smoother path forward. But let's be clear, no matter where you worked or how close you are to retirement, getting laid off can feel, well, like a gut punch, especially if you're just a few years away from hanging it up. So, what do you do? Well, you breathe, you don't panic, and then you get to work on a plan, Tony.
Yeah. Well, and what's the first step if somebody loses their job shortly before retirement?
Well, the first step, slow down your spending. All
Mhm.
right. So you've been dealt a tough hand, let's say. You're out of work, maybe unexpectedly, and staring down the barrel of early retirement, or at least a pause in your income. This is where we slow things down and make some smart moves. First things first. Now isn't the time for, let's say, a new boat or a kitchen remodel. Put the credit card down. You don't need to go full on no spend lockdown, but you do need to be intentional. Let the dust settle. Give yourself a moment to breathe and to think. Then it's time to crunch some numbers. Now, you need to know what you're working with, what's going out, what's still coming in, how long can you float without a paycheck. And let's not forget health insurance. Now, that's a biggie. You'll need to figure out where your coverage is coming from and what it's going to cost you. Now, maybe you're the spreadsheet type, running your own scenarios, forecasting cash flows, breaking it down like an actuary. Great. But if that's not your style, or if you just want a second set of eyes, this is a moment to call in a professional. A qualified financial services professional can walk through your savings, your expenses, and your timeline. In fact, they'll help you answer the big question: how long can I go without earned income? And then what are my options for bringing in dollars while keeping my retirement goals intact? Because make no mistake, you've still got options. In fact, you've still got a plan that needs adjusting, and you shouldn't do it alone, Tony.
Yeah. And I wonder if you could give us your own perspective on how a financial services professional like yourself may be especially valuable after somebody loses their job before retirement.
Yeah, losing your job right before retirement can, well, feel like the rug's been pulled right from underneath you. But
Yeah.
a financial services professional can help you land on your feet. And here's how: they'll work with you to assess your current savings, identify some income gaps, and especially create a plan to stretch your assets without derailing your retirement goals. Now, whether it's evaluating the pros and cons of drawing from retirement accounts or helping you understand tax implications, or maybe even exploring bridge strategies like, let's say, part time work, downsizing, or healthcare options. They can help bring clarity to chaos. And importantly, they can also act as a buffer against emotional decision making, helping you stay focused on the long term stability rather than that short term panic. Now, with the right advisor in your corner, you don't have to navigate this alone. In fact, you can turn a tough moment into a smarter next chapter. Because retirement is still possible, it might just look a little different than you originally planned.
All right. Well, and speaking of that, let's take a moment here, Albert, to let our listeners know how they can get a hold of you
Yeah.
and set up that no charge, no obligation consultation to make sure they have a plan in place and understand how they are going to be able to have a secure retirement.
Yeah, folks, you can visit my website at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen, or call my office at 586-752-7008 to discuss how we can answer your questions and address your concerns about the current economy, your retirement strategy, or any other parts of your financial game plan.
All right, that sounds great. Now, during the show today, you've been talking about some of the things people can do if they would lose their job or be laid off shortly before their target retirement date. And clearly, that's going to be a jarring situation, but leaning on your own financial plan or strategy can help. And having one and working with an advisor, you touched on the importance of slowing down spending, crunching your current numbers. What's next?
All right, well, let's stick with that USA Today article titled Nine Steps to Take If You're Laid Off Within 5 Years of Retirement. Now that you've taken a breath, reviewed your spending, and gotten a clearer picture of where you stand, it's time to talk strategy. Okay. In fact, this is where the rubber really meets the road. You've got options. Let's walk through them carefully. Now, if you're 59 and a half or older, you can tap into retirement accounts like your 401k or IRA without facing any penalties. That's one of the few silver linings to hitting that milestone age. It unlocks some flexibility, if you will. But if you're younger than 59 and a half, most withdrawals from those accounts come with a 10% penalty, and that's money you don't want to throw away. So there's a notable exception, though. If you're at least 55 and you've just left your job, you can take penalty-free withdrawals from the 401k tied to that specific employer. Now, key detail here: it only applies to the plan from the job you just left. Anything you've got stashed away from, let's say, previous employers, still subject to the penalty. Now, there's also something called substantially equal periodic payments, or SEPP for short, or the code itself is called 72T. Now, it's a fancy name, but here's the deal: it lets you start pulling from your retirement accounts at any age without the penalty. What's the catch? Well, once you start, you're locked in. You cannot change it up or shut it off easily. So if your situation improves, you're still stuck taking that income. So it's not ideal, but that's why I always say don't turn on income that isn't reversible unless you absolutely have to. In fact, there may be better ways to bridge that gap. maybe tapping into savings or using some home equity or even downsizing if it makes sense for your lifestyle. The point is, this is about playing chess, guys, not checkers. We want to think 3 steps ahead so you don't back yourself into a corner. In fact, you've worked hard for what you've built, so make sure you can still keep it.
Yeah, make sure your financial strategy doesn't back yourself into a corner.
Mhm.
It doesn't back you into a corner because that's not good. Because when it comes to our finances, you don't want to put yourself in a situation where you don't have any other options or cards to play. You need options, and I know that's what you help your clients with, right?
Yeah, and one of the other options could be thinking about whether you want to seek out a new job or retire earlier than you originally planned. Let's just say you've run the numbers and you've got a better sense of where you stand, what you save, what you're spending, and whether early retirement is truly within reach. But here's the thing, just because you can retire early doesn't mean you have to. For some folks, the idea of stepping away completely doesn't feel quite right. Maybe it's the routine or maybe the sense of purpose or just wanting to stay active and connected. If that's you, it might be time to ask, what kind of work fits this next season of my life? You don't have to keep grinding at full speed, in fact, part-time or fractional work where you lend your experience to companies in, let's say, a limited but a high impact way is on the rise. And for others, it's about finding joy again. That could mean working at a golf course, a boutique shop, or maybe turning a passion into a paycheck. Remember, retire doesn't mean retreat. All it means is realignment.
Yeah, that would be a tough one for me, Albert. I mean, I love my work. So,
Mhm.
on one hand, it would be hard to give it up. But on the other hand, if I was of retirement age, you might be inclined to just call it a career, right?
Yeah, I mean, many of my clients say the similar things, Tony. And while aren't there often aren't, let's say, easy answers, you can get to a
Mhm.
solution you're comfortable with. And then moving on, you should next examine, well, your Social Security strategy, because that's part of your mailbox money. All right.
Yep.
And let's talk about Social Security because when life throws you a curveball, like let's say an unexpected layoff, this decision suddenly becomes a lot more real.
Yeah.
In fact, most folks start their benefits somewhere between age 62 and 70. But here's the kicker, starting early, as you people know, comes with a permanent haircut and not the kind you walk out of feeling fresh. Now, if you file at 62, your monthly benefit could be cut by as much as 35%. That's a big hit. And for those born in 1960 or later, the full retirement age, well, is 67. That's when you can claim your full benefit with no reduction. And if you wait past that, obviously you get an 8% boost every year up to the age of 70. Now, that's some real money there. Now that you may have already mapped out, let's say, your Social Security plan, but if a layoff shows up uninvited, you might need to revisit those plans again. Sometimes early benefits may only be the options you have. But before you file, talk it through, please, because once you start, there's usually no turning back, Tony.
Right. And the Social Security Administration, they aren't going to talk about individual strategies for you
Oh,
and
no.
give you advice on your filing option. I mean, for me, I want to get Social Security, uh, have a strategy and get it just right. And that's
Mhm.
why I work with a financial professional. And that's why you do what you do. And you have that Social Security maximization report that you can run
Correct.
for people, and it's great. I mean, you want to look at things like how timing affects your monthly check, taxes, long term income. It's not just about numbers either, it's about feeling more confident
Yes.
about your retirement future. Have that Social Security maximization report run. My wife did. It's great. And Albert, it's great that you have that report. I would encourage our listeners to do that. How can our listeners out there set up that no charge, no obligation consultation and have that Social Security maximization report run?
Yeah, folks, you guys can call the office at 586-752-7008 or go to my website at www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen, and we can show you what makes sense for when to turn on your Social Security.
Yeah, I think that's great. Now, during this episode today, you've been talking about how you can weather a job loss within a few years of your retirement date. It's been a lot of information. What do you have for us next?
Well, let's finish off with the same article, 9 steps to take if you're laid off within 5 years retirement. It now talks about leaning on your professional network. All right. So let's say,
Networking.
yes, if you've made the decision, let's say, to get back out there and look for work, then here's your first move. Let people know.
Yeah.
Your network, your former coworkers, old bosses, that colleague you shared bad coffee with for 5 years, let's say. They might be your best source for your next opportunity. So start with the personal touch, phone calls, coffee chats, maybe a quick message just to say hi or, hey, I'm exploring what's next. Keep me in mind, but keep it simple and keep it real. All right. Now, but don't sleep on your digital presence either. If you've got a LinkedIn profile, update it. If you don't, now's the time to create one. It doesn't have to be fancy, just a clean professional snapshot of who you are and what you bring to the table. Now, think of it as your online handshake. All right.
Mhm.
And look, if you're 60 and feeling even a whisper of uncertainty about your job security, start now. Don't wait for the pink slip to take action. In fact, your future favors the prepared. Okay, Tony?
Mhm. Well, yeah, and I think there's that sense that once you hit your mid 50s, it's going to become nearly impossible to find a new job. But that's not always the case. It may be harder, but it's not impossible.
Right, right. And then with that, you should move beyond your network and lean on those you're closest to then. As the Beatles once said, we get by with a little help from our friends, right?
I
Everyone
love
we
it.
know
Yeah.
that song. But
Yep.
if you can lay it off later in life, that's not just a lyric, man, that could be a lifeline.
Yep.
No one should go through this kind of transition alone. When your career takes an unexpected turn, talking to people, really talking can make all the difference. Sometimes you don't need a solution. You just need someone to say, yeah, I've been there too. So you'd be surprised how many folks, Tony, will raise their hands with a story just like yours. Some will offer advice, some will offer an ear, and some might even open a door. So this isn't the time to retreat. It's a time to reach out because encouragement, empathy, and shared experience is real wealth too. And right now, it might just the boost that you need to take your next step with confidence.
Yeah. I mean, your friends are your friends for a reason. They're not going to judge you for losing your job. They're going to lift you up, and you need to rely on that support network.
Yeah. Now, even in the face of uncertainty that may come with, let's say, a job loss, you should find ways to also embrace that downtime too. You know, getting laid off right before retirement, yeah, that's a big blow. No doubt about it. But here's something we don't say enough. It might also be a moment, an unexpected pause to take a breath and really think about how you want to wrap up your career.
Mhm.
If you've got a little, let's say, financial cushion, maybe from savings or a severance package, this could be your chance to hit pause without panic. And I know it might sound simple, maybe even a little indulgent, but some of the best advice you'll hear right now is this: just enjoy yourself for a few months. Seriously, step off the hamster wheel. Take a walk without checking your email. Reflect on what's next, not just financially, but personally. What fires you up? What's worth your time now? Because this chapter is still yours to write. Make sure it ends on your terms.
Well, yeah, I couldn't have said it any better, Albert. That's great. And that is what really needs to happen. And since you've highlighted so much great information today, give us another summary before we go of how someone like yourself is especially important when you're 5 years or less from your preferred retirement date.
Yeah, in the 5 years leading to retirement, a financial service professional can be one of your most valuable partners. And these final years before your transition out of the workforce are critical, and the right guidance can make all the difference. So, first, they can help you create a solid retirement income plan, turning your savings into a predictable paycheck. This includes coordinating withdrawals from 401ks, IRAs, pensions, and Social Security in a tax efficient way. Second, they can provide tax strategy guidance, helping you lower your lifetime tax bill, whether it's Roth conversions or tax loss harvesting or managing income to reduce Medicare premiums. Their insights can save you thousands. And then third, they can assist with healthcare planning, which is especially important if you're retiring before Medicare eligibility at age 65. They can even help you evaluate COBRA or the ACA marketplace plans or spousal coverage options. Fourth, they can review and adjust your investment risk. As you approach retirement, your portfolio often needs to shift towards more stable, income focused options. And then finally, they can help you prepare for life's unknowns, from market downturns to unexpected expenses. A financial pro can bring clarity, confidence, and contingency planning to make sure your retirement is ready for the real life, not just the ideal scenario, Tony.
Yeah. Some great thoughts today, Albert, and a great topic. What to do if you're a few years out from retirement, and everybody needs a plan. Everybody needs to work with somebody like you. So, what are your final thoughts before we go today?
Basically, folks, if you want to learn more about putting a plan together and putting income in case you do lose your job before retirement or any other ideas of how to maximize Social Securities, go visit my website, folks, www.kaizenfinancialgroup.com. That's Kaizen, Kaizen, or give our office a call, 586-752-7008, and discuss how we can answer your questions, address your current concerns about, let's say, the current economy, your retirement strategies, or any other parts of your game plan. Remember, it's our goal to help you prepare for retirement so you can own your retirement.
Yeah, that is it in a nutshell. I love it. And that does it for today's episode of Own Your Retirement with our host, Albert Lalonde.
Take care, everybody.